Are you guys ready to get going? We're going to do seller objection handling today. I don't know if Pete's going to join us or if Mitch is going to. Oh, Mitch is still in Greece, I believe. So I don't think he's joining us. But are you guys ready to take off and help out some of our agents?
Yeah, I think Corina is waiting to be promoted to panelist too.
Okay, perfect. Well, I want to start off, I guess, by saying thanks everyone for seeing us. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon if you're over here on the East Coast with us in Florida or Craig in Philly. But today we're going to be going through seller objection handling. Obviously, one of the most key parts of our listing presentation is when you are talking with sellers and they bring up something maybe you don't have the perfect answer for. I think we're going to break some of those questions and really break through some of your walls that you might have been stuck on or you just didn't have the answer to. So does anybody want to start off right first, or do we have someone that had their hand up? I know Brian Moses is always ready to give us some valuable nuggets. Brian, you want to go first?
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, I'll go first. When it comes to seller objection handling, somebody once taught me that the best way to handle an objection is to handle it before it becomes an objection. So, good presentation, mind reading your prospect, putting yourself in their shoes. With sellers, initially they think that all real estate agents are the same. So, they might ask you on the phone or when you get there, what do you charge? Because they think we're all the same. So one way to handle that before it happens is to demonstrate your value. And I manage the seller's expectations because they want to know how much their house is going to sell for. And if you tell them how much their house is going to sell for, they turn off their hearing aid. They don't hear anything you say after that. So knowing that a seller wants to know the price, that's the one thing that they want to know. How I set myself up so that commission is never an objection and I can actually charge more than anyone in my market is managing their expectations. So I say this to the sellers after the tour and we're seated. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I appreciate you having me here today. Generally, when I meet with people like you, they want to know three very distinct things. One, they want to know how much their house is going to sell for. I imagine that's important, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here today. Yes, Brian, that's it. Well, great. You and I don't control that. The market controls that. So I brought some comparables and some recent sales and some market data with me, but because we don't influence that, we're going to cover that last, okay? So I let them know that we're going to cover price. We're just not going to do it first. The second thing sellers want to know is if there's a better time of the year that impacts my price in a positive way, you'd want to know about that too, right? Oh yeah, I never even thought about that. So we'll look at that when we look at the market data. Okay, great. And then the third thing, Mr. Seller, that sellers want to know is if there was one thing that's within my control that determines whether or not I sell my home at the bottom of the market or the top of the market, what would that be? Any ideas? Because there is one thing and only one thing that's in your control.
Rush anything and so
hold on a second.
Yeah, Tracy.
Hold on, David, can we get you muted there? Sorry about that, Brian.
That's okay, thanks.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. So there's one thing that's within your control. Any idea what it is? And they go, geez, I don't know. Marketing, communicate, whatever they say, great guess. I hear that a lot. It's actually the agent you select. Can I tell you why? So I'm coming right out of the gate, letting them know that the agent that they select determines whether or not they sell their home at the bottom of the market or the top of the market. Because price is a function of supply and demand. And the variable that you control in choosing the agent is which agent's going to create the most demand for your home so that you sell your home at the top of the market. And then we get into benefits presentation. And we want to differentiate ourselves with benefits. So I'll just handle the commission objection because that's probably the most common one. So we get to the net sheet, we've done pricing. We get to commission, they say, how much, what percentage is that? Because I put the dollar amount in. And I tell them the percentage and they lose their mind. They go, oh my God, the other agents we talked with are 2% less. I go, you shared with me who you met with and the companies that they're with. And, based on all the marketing that they do compared to the marketing we do, I'm actually surprised they charge that much. Did you ask them if they would do it for less? Because they're not syndicating your home to hundreds of different websites. They're not matching your property with our buyer match system. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. So let me ask you, are you interested in the lowest commission or are you interested in the highest price? Because we can pull things out of what we do. And you guys all do an amazing job in your listing presentation. We can pull things out, but we don't know where the buyer is going to come from. So do you really want to leave any stones unturned? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do everything we can to generate the most demand? The goal, best case, would be to create a bidding war where people are bidding against each other. Get your home sold at the highest price at a reasonable commission so that you net more money, so that there's more money in your pocket. Because you could go with any rando agent at a lower commission, but do you want to sell your house for $500,000 at 5%, or do you want to sell your house for $575,000 at 7%? Which is better for you? So that's the most common objection. I know we have some superstar panelists, but I wanted to handle that one. So thanks for letting me go first, Cam.
Brian, that was great. I love the fact how you set expectations that you know what they want. They want to know a price. And we're going to get to that, but because we can't handle that, let's discuss that last. Let's discuss everything we can handle right away. You guys, everyone that's on this call, that was a huge nugget. You need to be using that on every single listing presentation when you do it, because it allows you to build rapport. It allows you to get through everything that you give them, all of those benefits, before getting to that sticking point of, well, we want an extra 10,000, or that agent lied to us and said they could get more. So Brian, great stuff as always. Brian Yarbor, you didn't speak much last week. Would you like to jump in on some of your the best objection handlers you've used to really help people understand what you're trying?
Thank you, Cam. Morning, everybody. Well, first of all, Brian, what you started with was like everything I've preached to all my my own team is, you need to learn how to overcome objections before they become an objection. And a great presentation, like he was saying, will do that. So, and I've always learned that, that objection, when you don't handle it up front, will come back, and then you'll be like, oh man, I wish I would have handled that, right? And so in the presentation, exactly everything that Brian said, just replay this and listen to what he said. I just changed a little bit of words around. I don't call the market the market, because I know the market's actually never ready. You have to be ready for the market you're about to enter. So I just use the opposite of who I'm really talking to. So if I'm talking to a seller, really we don't control that. The buyers, the available buyers out there today who are looking at all the other properties, who are comparing your home to what they're seeing, they're the ones who are really going to bring and drive the price. So if we do our job well and present it well, and he's right about the three things, they only control the condition and how many people we can get into that property to view it. And so those are objections that, we cover. Some things that I like to maybe let people know that I do cover, or Randy and I, and he'll share this with you. We have what we call an initial in-person seller consultation. We actually like to interview the seller before we even determine whether or not we want to take their listing. They could be a very difficult seller and somebody, and we don't need that, right? You said these are the top people in the industry. I like to sleep well at night. So I'm going to interview somebody to see if I can even get along with them, because if we're not on the same page, I don't really need their listing that bad to go through. What I like to say is, you want to have the American dream or the American nightmare, because I know how to deliver both. And I'd prefer to deliver the American nightmare experience. And I know how to do that, after sitting in like the rest of these guys with probably 1,000 presentations in my career, what's going to be a great experience and what's not. And so you kind of give them your own analogy, and every seller has a different type, right? Craig likes to talk about the disc. So if you know your if you can figure out who they are, what they are really quickly in your presentation or before you get there, you'll know how to deliver the objection handling questions that they're going to have up front. And if you address those up front, that's really going to work well for you. So practice that. You really got to practice. I would role play. I would ask, if you have, people in your sphere that have recently gone on a listing presentation, they didn't get it. What were some of the objections that they feel like they wish they would have answered better? And then practice that together, because if somebody else is having those, chances are you're going to experience them too. So work together and raise each other up. The thing I like to ask best is when I'm doing a listing presentation, I've gone through the seller questionnaire, and then I find that this is a property I would like. It's in a market I like. The price is going to be good. Everything about the property is I really want this, but I know I'm going up against a couple other agents. Then the things that I really want to ask to the seller is, if you've seen some other presentations, was there anything in those presentations that you really liked that stood out? And just get quiet. And they'll give you them. If they haven't, they'll say, no, you're the first one. Great, that's good to know ahead of time. Well, then I'm going to go through what I would normally go through with every seller, but I would like to ask you, how do you feel about an open house? How do you feel about having a lockbox or access on your property? I want to ask these things up front before I go into my presentation, because if I lead in with, we really do a fantastic open house, but yet they hate open houses. Matter of fact, they already talked about it before I got there, is no open houses. We're not going to agree to them. So I don't want to give them this massive, open house presentation about how well we perform and how your house will be on Zillow and all these things. And it creates fear in an area that they already discomfort and they don't like to talk about. So do not give them your marching list of all the things you're going to do until you know how they feel about them. Because here's what I know. The moment you say something that conflicts with what they are looking for, they will agree to disagree internally, but they'll just kind of listen to the rest of what you're going to deliver. And then they're going to go, you know what? We really liked it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get back to you. That's it. That little sentence right there. We're going to get back to you is the kiss of death for real estate agents, because that just means you didn't hit the hot button. You didn't answer things correctly. So when you hear that, or if a buyer even says that to you, hey, it was really nice meeting you, have a card. If they ask for your card, that's the kiss of death. You obviously didn't prepare well enough to overcome, because what they really want to do is say, man, we're ready. Like, when you ask that question, hey, before I leave, I'm just curious, are you guys ready to get your home on the market today? Have you made the decision? Is there anything that's holding you back today that I didn't answer? I'm gonna ask professional questions if I'm closing to get out of there, to realize that maybe I need to come back. Maybe they are going to interview Matt Battiata and Pete Middleton, and I'm up against those two guys. I want to circle back around and find out, hey, after these other appointments that you have, I'd love to come back. I'd love to come back and talk to you to see how you feel about all of your presentations. Matter of fact, I'll wait outside if they're in the next hour or two, and I'll just sit around. I mean, I've literally had a seller just say, you're not going away, are you? And I'm like, well, no, I value what I'm doing here. And would you like me to call those agents and tell them you've just listed your home with me? I'd love to let them know that your home's going to be available. You just have to really get on your game with this stuff, because trust is something that you earn. Rapport is what most agents are trained to go after. But here's what I know. People who trust you don't have to like you to work with you. They will actually list their home with you if they trust you. But if you spend too much time just building rapport and you don't have enough trust, then chances are you're going to probably have to sit and wait to find out their decision, because they're going to interview a few more people. So that's on a listing presentation, and I'll leave it at that. I have other things that when we're getting offers, right? When we're having offers, when we're having multiple offers, price is not always the choice, right? The best buyer is how we present those buyers to the seller. If this were my house and I had these three buyers, I can tell you by far this is your A+ buyer, just based upon. So you have to negotiate with sellers sometimes that the highest price is not always the best offer and the best buyer, and get good at that too. Especially if you're in Park City and you've got a $14 million house on Deer Valley, and somebody just comes in with this massive offer price, but everything about the price has red flag, red flag, red flag. And then there's another buyer that's, maybe $500,000 less, which is a huge gap, but it's not a huge gap when you're talking about, multi-million-dollar properties. Huge gaps are not what they're looking for. Sellers are not looking for time wasters. They're efficient. They want to move on. They want to take their money. They can make $500,000 up tomorrow with the money that they're going to move. You have to analyze things differently with them, and you have to speak to them in a way that makes sense to them. And that's all I have.
Love it. Brian Yarborough, of course, just great stuff there. Now, one thing you said there was when folks ask the question, I've done this one a lot. I'm sure we're going to have a couple nods here, panelists. When folks say, we got to think about it, you say, absolutely, I want you to think about it. It's a really important decision, but I want to make sure that all of your questions are answered before, I leave. So what exactly do you want to think about, or what exactly is holding you up? That's one of the questions I have used dozens of times to continue on that thought process with them of, we're just trying to move on. We're just trying to go listen to the next agent. Hey guys, I get that. I'm excited for you. I want to help you however I can. But before you do, what else exactly are you thinking about that I could possibly help with? One thing too, you brought up there, Brian, which is really big, is I prefer to always be last in my presentations, always, because that it completely eliminates the condition, which it's the condition that they're interviewing other agents. And I even go so far as I will reschedule my appointments. I will call and confirm before I go out that I'm the last person. I do just about all I can to make sure that I don't get that objection, because I don't have the perfect handler for that. If they're going to go interview other agents, I got to say, okay, now I love it. You're going to stand out in front and wait for them. That's perfect. But that was really good. And that was a really, a strong point, is that objections versus conditions. You can't overcome a condition. So great stuff there, Brian, as always. David Lawson, selling $14 million homes up there in Deer Valley. What do you have for us on some of your sellers that you hear a lot from that are objecting and before they list with you guys?
So first of all, I completely agree with Brian, and as you know, if you've been on this, that I tell people all the time, we don't win or lose a listing when we're on the listing. We win the listing before we go on the listing, right? So that's the first thing that we have to focus on, right? But then the other thing is anybody raise your hand if you think Brian has done that listing presentation many times. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the script. He knows how to present, right? And that's what I do. I mean, I've practiced and role played it and so many times that I know it. And I always say a great listing presentation ends in a contract signed. So I very rarely get objections because, and Brian, I bet you don't get a lot of objections at all, because if your presentation is so good, you usually win. So I wanted to comment on that. And then what Cameron said, he likes to be last. I like to be first or last. I like to be first because what I do is I say, if I go in first and I say, basically, you're going to see that, and I love this term, if you're really that good, Brian, use this. As you can see, we think we're light years ahead of the competition. But if we're not, you can use the easy exit listing agreement that simply says, we're so confident you'll love our service that for any reason whatsoever you're dissatisfied, simply withdraw your listing, right? So you can end that right away. The other thing is I teach my team and my agents this. When you get them an objection, no matter what it is, there's 3 things you need to do every time. What are they? So first of all, don't get that look in your face like you're terrified, right? Will you list this for 4%, or will you take a 2-week listing, or I have a friend in the business, or whatever it is. You have to be prepared and you have to practice this. So if somebody says, well, I have a friend in the business, instantly I say, Cameron, I'm so glad you brought that up. So that's the first thing. So you say, I'm so glad you bring it up. The second thing is you affirm it, right? And repeat it back. You know what? And in Park City, almost everyone does. And then you handle the objection. So Cameron, so you have a friend, you live here, and since there's 1,500 agents and only 10,000 people that live here, you probably have 20 friends, right? And they say, oh yeah, I have a bunch of real estate friends. So then you have to know what to say. Like I'll say, there's two objections, right? One is, well, Cameron, have you ever worked with a friend and it didn't work out so well? This time might be like that. And with me, and the other thing is if you have 10 friends, you know what you're going to do? You're going to make one of your friends really happy and you're going to get 9 of your friends very disappointed. But if you hire me at the Lawson team, you can tell them that you hired me because you felt that I was the best in town, right? And then you say, does that make sense? And you close. And then what are the two questions that we're really seeing for the most part is price and commission, right? So the first thing is, as you know, if you've ever heard me coach on anything, you do not address the how much can I get for my house or what is the commission before you get in front of them. And I like what Brian does. Brian, you get in front of them, and then you do you handle the objection, right, Brian? And I got to tell you, that's super critical. So I'm going to do price and I'm going to do commission. So the first one is, so how much can I get from my home? I say, if I gave you a price without me completely seeing and doing all of the research, I'd consider that to be real estate malpractice. Now, if you say that, and then the next person says, oh, I can get you 1.5 million, and the other person says, I can get you 1.6, in their head, what are they doing? That's real estate malpractice, right? Because how can Cameron, how much is my house worth? You haven't even seen it, right? Right. So that's a really good one. And then, and the other thing is with price, I like to use something where in our team, where we have 2 people on the team, where we go in, one of us gives a range and then one of us focuses in on the right price, but that's for another time. Commission, you never handle commission up front. So you say, will you cut your commission? Brian says, will you cut your commission? Brian, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's, commission is going to be one of the things that we're going to go over. And you know what? Basically, you're going to get to choose the commission and the services that we provide. So is that okay when we go over that when I meet you today at 4, right? So basically that's kind of what I do. But if it all comes down to one thing, practice role play, know what you're doing, know your objection handlers. There's only 10 questions that every seller asks. So you should know what they are and you should know to handle them. Thank you.
That was great, David. And you're right. As you practice and you role play, you gain the confidence and you never get those deer in the headlights. I'm sure we've all been there somewhere in our careers that someone says something to us and we just simply don't have the answer. So the more you do it, the more you role play, the better you'll get at them. The other thing for you guys that maybe don't have a role play partner or you don't have someone to role play with, guys, the tribe has over 2,000 members now. Reach out to someone, reach out to us, jump in workplace. We are all here to connect with you and become partners with you. So I know there's got to be at least a few people on this call today that need a role play partner that want to talk about strategy. Jump in workplace or jump in the chat here and let's connect. Brian, I seen you got your hand up there. Brian Yarber.
Yeah, I just wanted to quick comment. When they talk about the price, what price, the seller asks you what price. When I started using RPR, I really changed my language and I said, here's the number I can defend. This is the number or the range I can defend based upon what I've learned by your house. Now that I've seen your house, because I haven't seen it sometimes and I come in with a price, but if I've seen the house, I can either way. I don't know why it works really well. You guys might want to try that. Here's a number I can defend. And then I show them how I defend it with the comps, because I don't know what the buyers are going to do. In San Diego, I can defend 699 and then we get an offer at 750,000 and it's non-contingent on an appraisal, right? So it doesn't matter. The market will blow some people away. But when you're in a market that's transitioning and starting to go down, when you start to say, well, here's a number I can defend, and you're in an opposite moving market, then the number's going to change pretty quickly based upon comps, and the number you could defend originally is a number that you feel really comfortable pricing it at, knowing that you can defend that number today. That's it.
Yeah,
Yep,
and I love
that's really
that.
important too.
I love that soundbite. You guys, you all have to have your list of go-to sound bites. Matt, my job is to protect your equity, right? Does every seller want you to protect their equity? Yes, right? Sometimes somebody says, well, I'll list the property at 1.8. And he goes, yeah, they're going to list it at 1.8. But when you hire me, I'm going to sell it, right? That is a really powerful one, because there's a lot of people that will say, well, I'll just, I'll hire you because you're so much higher, right? And one of my favorites that I use all the time is, Matt, as a professional real estate agent, I study homes and prices every day, and therefore, and then whatever it is that they're talking about, right? This is all called sales 101, 201, and 301, right? We need to, everyone, if you're in real estate, you've graduated from high school. Now you got to get an AA, work on your bachelor's and become, get your master's in sales, and the amount of people that will work with you and the money you make will drastically go up.
And the best part too with that, David, is that these sound bites, right? You get to use them for your entire career. We have been using that exact phrase since 2005, where I am an expert in the field. So you will listen to me and list your home with me if everything makes sense, right? Also, one thing to point out there, remember you guys, you have to make sure that once you do your objection handler, you confirm it with your client. That is what you want. Right? They'll go, yes, great. Then you can go into your close. So it's just like David was saying there, you have multiple stages to an objection. You want to repeat it back to them, confirm it, you want to handle it, and then you want to close. And each one of those stages, it has a little bit of jiving and a little bit of having your right sound bites and saying the right things. And that's exactly why you guys are here today. Now, Karina, I'm excited to talk to you about this. I want to hear what you're going over and some of the objections you've heard recently and how you're handling them best. So take it away.
Well, one of my favorite things to do in the whole wide world is go on a listing presentation. And I really don't even get objections. If I get them, I'm handling them in just regular conversation as I go through. So that's part of that rapport building, but also this is your chance to show them that you're an expert. I don't care if they've sold and bought 25 houses. They don't do it every day like you do and I do. So it's very important when you show up to that house, take a deep breath, get rid of your jitters. They say if you have like butterflies in your stomach for public speaking, you should take 3 very deep breaths in your diaphragm. So if you're finding that you're, a little nervous, take a couple deep breaths and then knock on that door. And make sure from the very beginning, you're having a conversation throughout the process and letting them know how you're the expert without actually saying I'm the expert, because that's just a little obnoxious. So, you're going into the house, and if you do what I do, which is I take them for a walk through the house, I'm letting them know I am an industry expert. I let them know, hey, I've run into this problem before and the seller did not paint that red wall. And by doing so, we actually had to drop $50,000 in order to get the house sold. And it could have just cost $250 to paint it. Do you want my painter's name? They're writing down the painter's name. And as we're going through, we're talking throughout the house. So they know by the time we sit down at that kitchen table or dining room table to actually start talking comps, And I have to agree. I think just about every one of the panelists have said, don't talk numbers. I'm an old school sales girl. I've been in sales forever, literally. And I will tell you, you never talk numbers up front. I don't care how much they beg and plead and cry that they need to know numbers. You know what? I have got to go through your house first, and then I can talk numbers because I haven't seen your house yet, and just push it off on that. And so I'm a keep it simple, stupid kind of salesperson. So I do very basic comps off the MLS. I looked at RPR. I felt it was just a little bit too complicated for the average person. It's very big and very beautiful, but I have to remember these people don't do it every day. So when I sit down with them and we've gone over everything about their house and the things that if they want to get top dollar, they would need to do. If they don't have the money or don't wish to, then we'll take that in consideration when we're talking dollars about their house. When I go through the comps, people, I got to tell you something. Put a couple minutes into your CMA like you actually want to win a commission. And it's not hard. If you use a simple CMA like I do off of my MLS, I print it out. And then I make sure, first of all, it's in color so they can see the comps that I'm using on that are competing against them. And I tell them I'm leaving it with them. So they don't think I'm going to take that back with me. That's the only thing I leave with them besides a couple little things about me that I leave that are very short, sweet, and to the point. And I'll tell you, open up those comps, do some circles. I get a yellow highlighter out. I take a pen in blue and I put a little circle with a smiley face and I write you so they know that's their column on each page. I love to, because, you know, when you're talking with them, you don't want to have to sit there and read. So I literally circle how many days on market. I draw lines across to show the similar square feet. I make a couple notes. If I notice that it had a big increase in price, there must have been multiple offers. I make some notes. So they actually feel like I care, and I've done a little extra than just print out some comps on their house. So as we're going through it, it's showing that I'm still an expert, right? So the whole idea is if you want to eliminate your objections, you actually have to stand up, put your shoulders back, and actually show them that you're an expert. You will have a lot less objections. Now, as you're getting objections on, Karina, before we looked at your comps, we know we want $450,000 for this house. Great. Not only do I have to sell your house, so this is how I handle that objection. Not only do I have to sell your house, I have to get it to appraise. And nothing's worse than having the appraisal come in lower than the price you got because you wanted and the seller wanted and pushed for a much higher price than the house was valued at. And so I am going to show you how I came up with your numbers based on the local comps in your neighborhood or your area, or however you have to go about getting your comps, if it's a specific type of house that you have to go outside. And you know what? I don't ever get pushback on my price. Every once in a while, a seller, will puff his feathers a little bit or her feathers. And I might come in at, we're just using this number, 450. Well, Karina, I really wanted 475. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to push back on that. I'll say it's your property, it's your investment. I'm happy to list you at 475. However, if within a week you do not have an offer for 475, we have to do a reduction. And the reason being is the longer you sit overpriced, the more money you're going to go down. So I want to make sure you're priced right. So if you agree to go with my number, your number, if I agree to go with your number and you don't have it within a week, then we'll go to my number. Is that fair? Yes. No problem. Get the listing. If they want 100,000 more, then they're smoking crack and I don't even want their listing, right? So let's just be honest here. It's not worth the time and energy. You go find 10 more customers, 10 more listings than the time you would be done with that Yahoo. So by the time I'm all finished and we've gone over everything, we go and I've talked about this before on some other calls. I don't have objections on commissions. We're not allowed to set commissions. I don't set my commissions, but I do negotiate my listing commission separate from the selling commission. And that works out beautifully, especially if you start with, once you figure out that 450, 475 number, $1 million, whatever it is, and you write that at the top and you start talking about, well, this is the number I would like to see because all the stuff I'm going to do for you for your listing. Is that fair? Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about the selling agent. And then you can really work it in. It's very rare I don't get a 6% listing on both sides, 3 and 3 or more. Sometimes it's 7%. Depends on the house, depends on the things that need to be done to the house. Sometimes I have a seller that has an overwhelmed mom, a working mom with a bunch of kids, dad's working. I sometimes will charge a little higher commission on my side, and I'll send a cleaning lady in every week if we need to. So, or they don't want to, their yards are atrocious. Sometimes I will pat it in and take that on top of that. When by the time I'm done and I look at them and I say, you know, before I start sending you contracts, I just need to know, are you going to hire me? And I just shut up, right? The first person to lose 101, selling 101. They look at each other, they shrug their shoulders and they're like, of course. And then I say, okay, let me text my assistant. She'll send you the contracts right now. You can sign it electronically so I can make sure you know how to sign your offers electronically when the time comes. It's very easy. Objections is just somebody who's maybe confused or have heard rumors or their friends said, make sure you ask these 22 questions, right? But you don't be asked most of those questions if you just show them that you are an industry expert, which everyone is. If you passed your real estate exam, you're already light years ahead of the average buyer and seller, right? And if you're on these panels and you're going through trainings and you're going to EXPCon or whatever else you're going to, you are the expert, and you have to remember that. And I think a lot of times when I speak to agents who are losing listings or getting these overwhelming objections is that they're not posturing correctly. You know it. You just have to remind yourself you know it. And if you don't have someone to practice with, I will tell you, practice in front of a mirror and make sure you're smiling, because your reflection is always different when you're smiling. And you want to be warm and friendly to your clients. The more warm and friendly you are, no, you're not going to be taken advantage of and someone's going to just walk all over you. You're being a human and they're being a human back. And a lot of those objections are just because they feel the need to ask. When I ask them if they have any questions, I know I just sat there and fire hose them down with information for 2 hours. I usually don't leave till I know they're going to take me anyways. So I don't even ask if they're seeing any other realtors. In my opinion, I don't have any competition. If I'm in, I'm walking out with that listing. And it's 99% of the time is the actual truth. A couple of times I've walked out and said, you know what, I appreciate that you wanted to hire me, but I'm not the right agent. I have someone on my team I can send in for you. And I've walked away.
We're good. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. So
Karina, that was the stuff you were saying there. I think we're really reverberating kind of what everyone else is saying is be the expert with your knowledge, with your experience, do the practice, do the role play. You're going to have the confidence leading in. And that is going to allow you to breeze through the objections because one, they're already going to be pre-answered by the fact that you are the expert. You're giving them the information that's going to answer a lot of things. But two, I think a lot of the questions, which is all an objection is, right? It's a question about something you're presenting to them. A lot of those questions are going to be dissolved when they know they want to work with you. So I think that's some really, really good stuff. Now, Craig, the golfer from Philly finally got warm enough up there that you hit some golf balls around. We were talking about that earlier. But tell me some of the objections you're seeing and how you're handling them.
Let's make sure we understand the bad golfer from Philly. That has a high handicap and has a lot of fun. So, hey, I get my money's worth. What do you want? You know what I mean? Have a good time chasing that white ball around. Hey, it's kind of like chasing sellers around too. You don't know where they're going unless you ask them. And those are, there were awesome dialogues here. I mean, what David said, what Karina said, what Brian said, all those things are great. The bottom line comes down to it is it comes also into your aura. It comes into your space. Your confidence level. If you walk in there with sweaty palms and shaking or the smell of commission breath or blood in the water, you're going to lose. You're going to lose because if you're coming in against me or you're coming in against somebody else here or anybody else, everybody in the panel, we are all good who's on these panels because we're all learning and who's listening is also excellent. I know a ton of people in here. You're all excellent. The point is you've gone through the process. So to go in against somebody with sweaty palms, like a surgeon who's shaking, you can see that, they can smell that, and they can taste it. So when you go in with your own confidence in yourself, like Karina said, with your shoulders back, your head up, and like you're the shit, like I'm it. I'm not leaving here unless I get it. I'm choosing to leave it or not. You know, I sometimes joke with my sellers when I walk in. I was like, great, we can do this two ways. One is sit here and do a dog and pony show, and I can tell you how great I am and all the things I'm going to do like all the other agents. or we can sit and talk about your story and what you want to achieve. Which one would you like? And now I know where I'm controlling. They want to see a dog and pony. I'm like, okay, have you met with any other realtors? Great. What did you like about them? What did you hate about them? Why haven't you hired one of them? Why am I here? Something wasn't right. The expectations were not in alignment, so there was a conflict. Conflict happens when alignments of expectations are not there. So you're not aligning with people because they're not hiring. You got to figure out how to come up with, to align with their conflicts and go from there. And the only way you get them is to ask, because you don't know it. And I usually go right into the talk with the conversation, hear the story, because when you go to the doctor doesn't start poking and prodding you. They ask you first thing, what's wrong, right? So what's your point of pain? Why? Why are you moving? Why are you thinking about going through this biggest stress? You know, it ranks up there with death, divorce, all the stuff. Why do you want to do this? Okay. And then once you figure out the why, then you figure out how to customize it to them. Not everybody's the same. This is not like doing an operation, taking an appendix out, you can do with your eyes closed. Everybody's situation is different. Paperwork's the same. Process is the same. Your systems are the same, but each personality is different, because you actually have to be a marriage counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, you know, anything, a police officer at times, because you got to break them up sometimes, you know, in the process, because sometimes it's divorce. So I know where you guys went on a lot of dialogue. I'm going back to your own inner feeling of yourself and your own control going into it, because if you have doubt on yourself, they're definitely going to see it on your face. So you got to walk in going. And you also have to have some fun. Like I've always said, change lives, make money, have fun. And if it isn't fun, I'm not doing it. I go in and tell the seller, look, this is going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to ask you questions you're not going to like. Are you okay with that? Yet they're okay to ask the okay. Because now they're going to open up with you. And as Cameron, I know we've said this before, this line's been used before, say, is there any way that we're not ready to list this home today? When you first walk in the first 5 minutes, ask them. I know Matt's used that line before. Is there any reason why we're not going to list the home today? Well, I have other people to talk to. Great. How about if we can overcome those things you're going to talk to them about? Are you ready? And by the way, I did bring my pillow. It's in the car. I can sleep on the couch. I'm really good. I'm not leaving. And if you guys need a minute to talk, I'll go stand outside. You talk, I'll be back in. I've used the lines, but you got to go back to having fun with it and disrupt them. Because the only reason they're not breaking down to you is because you're not disrupting them in their thought. They're in protection mode. You need to break their protection down and become human with them, not become just a regurgitator. So that's kind of where I go without going down the specific dialogues, but that's how I work on it all the time. Do the same thing with buyers. Have fun, know your stuff, and walk in with your shoulders back, ready to kick somebody's ass. And understand, if you don't get the listing, somebody else is taking your money from your family. How personal is that? It's like somebody's trying to steal your wife or your husband, your significant other. BS. Nobody's taking my mom here. So there's the story.
I mean, yeah, Lurchy, that is powerful stuff. And that's something that, you know, you touched on 2 points there. You went real serious. And then you also said have fun, because when you're having fun and you're confident and you lead with enthusiasm and you lead with the fact that you want to help them, we just got to figure it out the best way I can do this, you're going to be way further along than the mopey guy that comes in and says, well, here's the listing presentation, you know, and then does the basic scripts that he learned on some free website. So great stuff there. I'll tell you one thing though, Lurchy, I don't think you want me doing surgery on you with my eyes closed, even if it's an appendix. I think we're gonna I think we're gonna.
I trust you enough, Cameron. I trust you. You're my brother. I trust you.
I love it. All right, Matt, you're going to be our finalist today, and you have, I think, the most valuable information of everyone on this panel. So let's hear some of the objections you've been hearing and that you've been handling. And I know we have one in the chat there. How to do big dollar commissions, like 100,000 plus commissions. What are we doing there? So take it away.
So I really agree with everything everybody said, but I'll try to add a few things. First thing is when it comes down to the end of when you're actually trying to take the listing after you've done your presentation, I think it's really important to point out to isolate the objections. So, you know, would that be the only thing keeping you guys from signing the agreement today? You're just, you know, the other agent said they would do it for 5% or 4.5%. Yes. You isolate it. Now you can overcome it, whatever it is. Would that be the only thing keeping you from moving forward today? Just that issue with the price that we talked about, you know, the other agents said they could get more for the house, et cetera. So you always want to isolate it, and because then they're going to say, yeah, that pretty much, I mean, everything else you said is great. We love all the marketing, blah, blah, blah. But it's just really that it's the price or it's the commission. And those are really, boy, my phone keeps ringing, sorry. So you want to isolate it. Now, I find the biggest ones are always good. The biggest one really is going to be the price. And that's really important because we all know that's probably the biggest determinant as to whether that house is going to sell. So I always like to talk to them about, one of the things I use a lot is, you know, I understand you go over the comps, of course. I always say things like, you know, we only get one chance to go on the market and make a first impression. And you guys know when you've been out shopping for homes, what it feels like when you come across a home that's overpriced. And you say, wow, it's a nice house, but those people are crazy, right? Because you're comparing it against all the other homes that you're looking at. So we don't want to be that house. And we don't want to be the house, you know, selling real estate is a sprint. It's not a marathon. We don't want to go on the market and sit for 30, 60, 90 days like some of your neighbors. I mean, I just wouldn't want to see that happen because it's always going to mean that we're going to end up taking less than we should for the house. It's a sprint. It's not a marathon. You know, I saw a house the other day that we showed. It's been on the market for 47 days. And it's the only problem with the house is it's overpriced. And, you know, sellers always think that buyers, why don't they just make an offer? Because they don't think you're going to take an offer that's so low and they don't want to offend you. So all we're going to end up doing is helping your neighbors sell their homes. And you're going to look like, you know, the redheaded stepchild that's just sitting on the market. And I'm sure we agree we don't want to do that. So use stories. I also like to mention, and what I always do, I took 2 listings yesterday. I took them both lower than the most recent sale by about 10 to 15%. Actually, one of them 16%. And what I said to them, because of course they had met with other agents who said we could sell it for X amount, we can get even more and so forth. I said, you know, what we want to do is create a bidding war. That's how we're going to we want to get multiple offers and bid up the price. And then I talked to them about how we ratchet up the price in a bidding war. And I said, to do that, we need to look like a deal, right? That last house that sold, you know, interest rates were 1% lower than they are right now. We want to look like a deal. And we want to, and part of the pitch that I use is we want to sell your home in one weekend, right? With 1 or 2 days of showings. To do that, we want to get multiple, you know, a lot of people in the door, and we want to create a bidding war. And so we need to have a little blood in the water and make it look like a deal. And then we're going to let the market do its work, and we're going to ratchet up the price. And I think you're going to get that number that the other agents are telling you. But the smartest way to do that is to price it competitively so we look like a deal and we get lots of people interested. So I always talk about creating a bidding war. I tell stories. I also tell them, they say, well, I mean, why are these other agents telling us that we can get, you know, whatever the number is, 2.4, and you're telling us we can only get 2.2? I said, you know, let me explain to you, there's a phenomenon in real estate, and it's called buying a listing. The average agent that you're talking with sells 4 homes a year. That's really the National Association of Realtors. The average is 4 homes a year. That means that this listing represents literally 25% of their annual income. So as you can imagine, they're desperate to get your listing. And we all know what you want to hear. You want to hear, you're probably going to like the person that tells you your house is worth the most, because it makes you think that they really believe in your house. The reality is they're lying to you, or they don't know what they're doing. One of the two, and neither of those is good. You know, if we overprice your home, we go on the market, then the agents are going to be calling you back in 2 or 3 weeks and saying, you know what, unfortunately, the market doesn't seem willing to support this price. Now we got to drop the price. Now we've lost all the momentum. And then, you know, right now, because interest rates keep going up, we're in a little bit of a declining market. So we go on the price overpriced. Now, even when we drop it 30 days into it, we're still overpriced, and we're chasing the market down. So I tell them stories like that. And I just say those other agents they're trying to buy your listing. They're telling you what they know you want to hear, which is your house is worth X amount. And every seller typically has an inflated idea of what their home is worth. And it's just, they're lying to you to buy your business. They're trying to trick you into listing with them. And you didn't have me over here to lie to you. You had me over here to tell you the truth. And that's what I'm doing. So I also agree with, I don't know who said it, but the listing really starts with the pre-listing packet. I send them a pre-listing packet before I go to the listing. It's got tons of testimonials in there. I also send them a video that I just make here on my computer using BombBomb, just to build that rapport before I even get there. It works really, really well. So they feel like they kind of know me before I get there. You know, years ago, before we really had much of the internet, I literally had a VCR tape, might even been a Betamax tape, and I would have it delivered to their house in a FedEx packet by my assistant. And I would tell them, you got to watch this video. It was like an 8-minute video. It was basically a pre-listing video. And when I would get to the house, I'd say, did you guys get a chance to watch that video? And if they said no, I'd say, well, do me a favor. I'm going to go outside in my car and make some calls. Just watch it. Take 10 minutes and watch it, because that was my listing presentation. And I really wanted them, I didn't want to have to do it all over again. So it really does start before you get there. So the things I would add, I know we're about out of time, but is isolating and overcoming objections, telling stories, talking about other agents wanting to buy their listing, and really be disingenuous, because we all know that's what they're going to do. They're going to take it at an overpriced price, and then they're going to call them up in 3 weeks or a month and say, boy, I don't know what, gee, I don't know what's going on. Unfortunately, we're just priced too high, but now you're stuck. I also give everybody a cancellation guarantee. It says they can cancel whenever they want without penalty prior to accepting an offer, so that they have an out if they're unhappy, and most agents don't offer that. But it's really about, much of this is done before you get there. And if you show yourself to be the expert, they'll take your advice on price. And that's the most important one.
Absolutely great stuff from the GOAT, Matt Battiata. Loved it. And, I think some things there real quick. I know we're at 1 o'clock, you guys. That was all just fantastic stuff. I'm going to tell a quick story. Same exact thing you were just talking about there, Matt. We had a client wanted to list at 550. The home was really worth closer to 500, or it was closer to like 515, 520. But instead of telling them, no, we can't get 550, we actually underpriced it at 500, right? Got multiple offers and got them to bid up to 530, which is much higher than we would have gotten if we would have listed at 550. There's just no way about it. I think the one thing that I got out of that, I know we're wrapping it up here, guys, so let's be quick, is have all of the questions that you're getting all the time done in your pre-listing package or the pre-listing video like you were doing, Matt. However you're doing it, answer those questions up front for them. And that way you don't even have the objections. You're pre-handling those objections. My favorite one, because you always get this, is how much do you guys charge, right? That's like everybody on the phone, how much you charge? And of course, the quick answer to that, and you say it with confidence, I'm glad you asked, and I let you choose. And they go, well, what do you mean? And I'll tell you all about it when I come out later this afternoon or whenever you have the thing scheduled. We're going to let you choose. We give you that power, and that's it, everybody. They want to have the power. They want to choose. And that is, again, another rapport building. During your pre-qual conversations, or during that first call, once you set the appointment, you need to be asking these questions, but then taking the time and listening. Quiet, just listen to them. They'll tell you all their objections on that first phone call if you're listening, and then you can plan out what you want to do when you arrive at the house. So great stuff, everybody. Does anyone want we call it quit today? We're all set. Cool. That was a great call, Yoan.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Let's see you guys here next weekend, same time, same place.
Thanks, Cameron.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great day.